Hey, Crossroads family and friends. I want to take a couple of minutes just to to share my heart. Boy, I hope I do it right. I hope I honor all of you in the process, and I hope you can hear my heart. Um, we all know we're in the middle of all that's taken place with COVID and all that's taken place with all of the unsettledness of our of our country in this season and time that we find ourselves in, and whether it's the election or the riots and fires or the COVID or whatever it is that has unsettled all of us, probably all of it, to be honest. And we find ourselves as a local church. I find myself as a pastor. I mean, our world is dealing with it all the way down to the local church, and then ultimately me. I don't hold any authority in the big picture of it whatsoever, other than what Jesus tells me to do and guides us to do, to be honest. I'm not an expert in any of it whatsoever, and I try to be informed as I walk through a process, and we've made lots of decisions based upon I think what Jesus tells us to do, rather than what our culture or people would tell us to do, or left or right would tell us to do. And so when I share this today, it's really coming from my heart. And if you have any questions, please, you can call me, text me, Twitter me, email, whatever works best for you. I'd love to talk with anybody about the process that we're in. But we as a church find ourselves here in Ogden, Utah. And we're in Ogden, Utah. We're not in Kansas, we're not in LA, we're not in anywhere else. We're in Ogden, we're in Ireland, in my home country, back in Carrickfergus, my home, as it were. We're in Ogden, Utah. And for me as a person, as a pastor, as a Christian, maybe forget about the pastor part, forget about all of that. But as a believer, I make the best decisions I can in the moment that I find myself in. I don't know what tomorrow holds, or next week, or next month, but in the moment that we find ourselves in, I make the best decisions we can. And so we find ourselves in a place where the governor of Utah is trying to do the very best he can. Governor Herbert is trying to do the very best that he can. And as a Christian, my heart is I try and live out God's word the best way I can, not to judge anybody else, but for me as a person, as a Christian, and maybe in a role as a pastor of a church, I try and live it out according to where it comes and sits and falls from me. And so let me share some things, and then please text me, call me. I'd love to talk with anybody that needs to talk to me about the process. But in 1 Peter, let me read you 1 Peter 2:13 and 14. It says this: "For the Lord's sake, submit to all human authority, whether the king as head of state or the officials he has appointed. For the king has sent them to punish those who do wrong and to honor those who do right." Right? So that's what it says in 1 Peter there. And so for me, for the Lord's sake, right, that's the beginning statement. Submit to all human authority. It also says in Romans 13:1, "Everyone must submit to the governing authorities, for all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by God." I pray about who gets elected. I pray about my officials. I pray about all that stuff. But for me, when it comes back to it, it comes to that everyone must submit to governing authorities, for all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. Whether I understand that or even agree with it, to be honest, or not, that sometimes is kind of irrelevant for me. And so for us here in Utah, the decisions that I've made for our local church isn't that anybody's better or less than us, not at all. But I heard my governor request of our state, which I live in, that we would help him and support him in the process. That as a state, if we could wear masks, that it became mandatory for our state. People say, well, it's not good, it doesn't work. And I get all that. I get all of that discussion. I'm not an expert, but for me, when it comes to anything, I read Romans 13:1 for me. Everyone must submit to governing authorities as best as we can, right? So I don't feel that our Christian rights are being violated. For me personally, that wearing a mask is something that violates my Christian rights. Others may, and that's totally fine. But for us at Crossroads, I made the decision because I support the governing authorities, which in this case is Governor Herbert, and all that he's trying to do for our state. And it might be wrong, could be right. I don't know. And I don't think he knows. He's just doing the very best he can do for our state. And so for me as a local pastor, we made a decision, and we are making a decision, Crossroads, that at the moment, the last couple of weeks we did what he asked us, was to wear masks in our large gatherings. And I know people say, well, it applies everywhere else, but not in church. But I'm actually a part of living in Utah, and I'm a person who lives in Utah. And so if our community is in that place of supporting him as a community person, as a person who walks within that same framework of Ogden, Utah, of Utah, I'm going to submit to and support the governor in this process and walk him forward. So for we as a church, we're going to stay with the governor's guidelines. Our numbers have shot up, and you can argue and disagree with all of that all we like, and I totally get that and I have no problem with that. But for me as a local pastor, I'm doing my very best to walk in Romans 13:1, that it says to really to submit to the governing authorities, for all authority comes from God. Whether I agree with it or not, that's irrelevant. That's not what it says. And so for me, we're going to do that. And then ultimately, Romans 12:10 says this: we're to love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. That's preferring one another. And so there's lots of us that may not be in a compromised position and all that sort of stuff in there, but there's others that are. And so for me, as a Christian, as a local pastor, my choice of us having masks on in our mass gatherings right now, our larger gatherings right now, is both those things. One is we're to prefer one another. Right or wrong, that doesn't matter to me. It's preferring another person to help in the overall picture and the overall potential picture of all of that. And I know there's arguments of conspiracy theories and all the different things, and I totally hear all of that from everybody. I get it. But the Bible doesn't allow me to interpret it from that perspective. As Romans 13:1 says, it says everyone must submit to governing authorities, for all authority comes from God. And those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. Not by a party, not by a person, but by God. We vote and pray and use our righteous conscience as believers of which way you vote. That's up between you and God. Please do whatever God directs you in your conscience to do. We do that. But I submit to the authorities not because I got to vote them in, because whether I agreed or disagreed, that's irrelevant. It's that God has placed those people in positions of authority according to what the Word of God says. And so I personally submit to that. And so the Bible tells us to do that. And so when they ask of me or ask of us to wear masks, then we as a church, me as a person, as a pastor, and if I'm wrong, I take full responsibility of it. But I choose to support my governing authorities, in this case, Governor Herbert and his request. And so we as a church, we're going to stay with wearing masks in our larger gatherings. And it's uncomfortable and it's awkward. I get all of that. It really is. But out of respect for him and out of respect for that request, I'm going to do that. And then secondly, for Romans 12:10, that we're to love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring or preferring one another. If I can choose to not do something or to do something that would honor all the people around about me, right or wrong or indifferent, as a believer, I'm going to choose to do that. And again, if that's not something, you're more than welcome to join us and watch us online. We'd love you to do that with us. Please do that. But we're going to walk forward 1 week at a time or a couple of weeks at a time and see where everything's at and make the best possible decision that we can. And so for me, as the pastor of Crossroads Church, our preference, my leaning right now, would be to allow us, out of respect, to honor the governor. Again, I'm not an expert in any of it, so I don't pretend to be. And I am informed by a lot of variety of stuff that I've made myself be aware of, and I've done that. But please hear my heart today. I'm not doing it in fear. I'm not doing it out of control. I'm not doing it out of any pressure from anybody else. Just for me personally, I'm doing the very best I can do to honor the governing authorities, which in this case for me is my governor, Governor Gary Herbert. And then to prefer other people in preference to what's going on. Not that it's right or wrong, but just to preferring one another in all that we're going through and all that we're walking through. And so for right now, Crossroads is going to stay with masks on in our Sunday services, and we would love you to come and join us. And masks are available at the door if you don't have one. We're going to ask you to come join us if you want to. If not, and that's uncomfortable for whatever reason, there's a lot of fantastic right reasons not to have to wear a mask. Please stay at home. We would love you to join us online. We really would. It's our honor to serve you the best way we can. But again, I love you guys. I'm for you guys. I support you 110%. We're doing the very best we can in the season we find ourselves in. We'll use all the social distancing stuff and hand cleansing stuff and all the stuff that's been recommended. And again, please hear my heart. I'm not an expert, and I'm keeping informed as best I can. But when I read the Bible and I go to Romans 13:1, it's really powerfully clear for me. Everyone must submit to governing authorities. It's not optional whether I like it or not. But for all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. And I know people will twist it and all that sort of stuff. But for me, just hear my heart as the pastor of Crossroads. I want to love and serve you the best way I can. I want to lead the best way I can, walking in the foundational fundamentals of our Christian faith. And that's one of them. And then secondly is Romans 12:10, is that we would take delight in honoring each other, which is really preferring one another. So I may choose to not do things, or I may choose to do something. I might choose to wear a mask out of respect, not necessarily just for me, but for the people around about me in that journey with me. And so please hear my heart. If you need to contact me, please give me a call, 801-695-7700, or email me, rageiler@me.com. I'd love to answer any conversation you want to have with me. Please let me know how I can best serve you in that sense. So please, thanks for taking a few minutes to listen to this. I know it's probably a little bit long. I just want to make sure you hear my heart. Hopefully my heart came across. I want to love you and serve you and care for you the best way I can. And I'm learning and we're falling forward. I'm falling forward into this season, learning as I go. And so I love you guys. Have a great day. Take care and God bless for now. I look forward to see you on Sunday, either in person with a mask or online without, if you want to. Whatever, both are phenomenally powerful and both are phenomenally valuable, and any person is welcome to us and join us in any way that works for you. God bless you for now and take care. Love you.